Faith is doing good tonight. What'd you have for supper, Faith? Beans and cornbread. If you'll just put that right up here. Just right there. Let me ask you one question. Do you know whose birthday it is today? Whose birthday is it today? Gina Ham. We've got a milestone birthday. How old is Gina? 55. Big 55. So you be sure and wish Gina happy birthday. Almost caught up with the lake. Very happy birthday. Any other announcements, things you want to say before we begin? Any grievances you want to air? Complaints? Yes, Carrie. Announcement. Well, that is great. That is great. Kyle had no test. She's still cancer-free. We're thankful for that. Any other announcements? All right. We're good to go. I want you to turn to, or just watch the screen, 2 Corinthians chapter 11. 2 Corinthians chapter 11. I'm going to tell you what. Y'all did not seem real excited last week about Acts chapter 13. I'm just telling you the truth from where I stood. I told Alan afterwards, they didn't have it tonight. I don't know what y'all's dealing with, but it's all right. I mean, sometimes we feel better than others. And so I just decided to scrap the Acts class altogether, and we're not even going to cover Acts anymore. I felt like y'all wasn't enjoying Acts 13, so I'm just going to skip the whole thing, and we're going to go now to a study of 2 Corinthians. That is a lie, but I just wanted to see your reaction, wanted to see if you were somewhat shocked, if anybody said, yes, that was a test. But we are in 2 Corinthians. That's the English Standard Version, and Paul discusses some of the perils that he suffered. And this is, again, from the ESV. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes, less 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea. All right, I want to look at each of these briefly. And Paul details some of the things that he suffered. 40 lashes less 1. How many lashes would that be? 39 stripes. Now this was actually, I'm not saying that it was scriptural in Paul's case, but that was Deuteronomy 25, 1 through 3. If you did something you ought not to have done, the law of Moses allowed you to be punished up to 40 lashes. You ought to look at that. But not more than 40, because that might make you humiliated and lightly esteemed in the eyes of your peers. So they couldn't do more than 40. Well, the Jews decided, well, we can't do more than 40. We don't go over 40, so we'll just do 39. They're very fastidious, weren't they? We'll just do 34. I bear in my body, I'm branded, the marks of the Lord Jesus. He had been whipped, and he had the scars to show it. 3 times I was beaten with rods. This was a type of punishment that the Romans would inflict. It sometimes resulted in death. Only one of these is specifically recorded in Acts. Do you remember where it happened? We haven't gotten there yet, but I guess you would still know. Where was Paul beaten and the jailer took him and washed his stripes? It was the Philippian jailer that did it. So it was in Philippi, Acts 16, 22, 23. And it was illegal in Paul's case because remember he was a Roman citizen. 3 times I was shipwrecked. What comes to mind when you think about Paul being shipwrecked? Acts 27 and 28. But I will tell you this, none of these are recorded in Acts. That shipwreck in Acts 27 and 28 when Paul was on his way from Caesarea to Rome actually happened after Paul wrote 2 Corinthians. So you could add another shipwreck to Paul's ledger, making for a total of at least 4 shipwrecks. I don't know that I would have wanted to have been on a boat with Paul. You know, the odds are something bad is going to happen. A night and a day I was adrift at sea. This would also have been before the shipwreck in Acts. Now, of the perils of Paul. Which one did I skip? I skipped one of them in going over them. Once I was stoned. Once I was stoned. And where did that happen? Where did it happen at? Where? At Lystra, right? At Lystra. Turn to Acts 14. That's what you read in this chapter. B times. So what are we covering right now? First missionary journey. All right, let's step back. We're covering the book of Acts. What are we studying? The first missionary journey of Paul. It lasted for about how long? 3 years. About 3 years, from 46 to 49 or so A.D. 46 to 49, 3 years. Paul had with him who? What companion? Barnabas, and only on the first journey because they're going to split up before the second journey. So Paul and Barnabas just on this first one. And so this, once I was stoned, happened in Acts 14 at Lystra that we're going to notice tonight. All right, we've made it so far. We're at number 5. We're going from 5 to 6 here in a minute. But I wanted to look at the first 7 verses. If you're in Acts 14, look at the first 7. We're told now at Iconium they entered the synagogue and spoke in such a way that a great number of Jews and Greeks believed. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and, the ESV says, poisoned their minds against the brothers. So they remained for a long time, speaking boldly in the Lord, who bore witness to the word of His grace, granting signs and wonders to be done by their hands. Look at verse 4. But the people of the city were divided. Some sided with the Jews, some with the apostles. When an attempt was made by both Gentiles and Jews with their rulers to mistreat them and to stone them, they learned of it and fled to Lystra and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia and the surrounding country, and there they continued to preach the gospel. So, as this chapter opens, they leave Antioch and they head east towards Iconium from 5 to 6, up here from 5 to 6 on our map. Iconium was an old city, an ancient city. It claimed to be even older than Damascus. And you can read about Damascus all the way back in the very first book of the Bible, in Genesis. Well, Jews had settled in this area. They had a synagogue, at least one, in this area. And as usual, that's where they started. And as usual, they had success. Both Jews and Gentiles, Greeks, obeyed the gospel. But there were Jews that were disobedient and they stirred up trouble. And I wanted to look at verse 4. It says that they were divided. The city was in a state of confusion. They were divided. The word there actually is schizo. Schizo, like schizophrenia, right? Some were influenced by the unbelieving Jews, and some were convinced by the apostles' teaching. Now, things got so heated there that they decided that the apostles ought to be stoned. Now, stoning was punishment. Who would have inflicted that type of punishment, stoning, Jews or Romans? Yeah, and what was it punishment for? Blasphemy. Stoning was a Jewish method of punishment. But somehow, providentially, the brothers became aware of the plot and they fled the city. Now, there was no shame in that, right? There was no shame in them when they heard about what was going to happen, leaving in this case. Isn't that exactly what Jesus told them to do? Look at Matthew 10:23, and you can just make a note there. Jesus told them, when they persecute you in one city, do what? Flee to the next. Flee to the next. They weren't bound to stay any one place and just be their whipping boy. So they went into the region of Lycaonia, and specifically, they went to the cities of Lystra and Derbe. You see there are 6 on the map, 7 pointing down to Derbe. All right, let's look at this second section. This